You're wondering, what does Islam really have to do with critical thinking? Well, let me answer your strangely specific question. We all know the very famous story in the Quran about when Prophet Ibrahim questioned the idol worshipping of his father. But one thing you probably never considered about this very famous story in the Quran is that Prophet Ibrahim had to overcome one of the principal enemies of critical thinking in doing this. And that very well-known bias is called confirmation bias. Side note. Never mind, don't have another camera. A bias is a psychological shortcut that the human psyche uses to save time and resources while trying to make judgments. Now, all that is fine if you're dealing with a life-threatening situation in nature or a very time-sensitive situation. So, for example, you don't get eaten by a tiger. But in terms of logical thinking and finding truths, it actually works against us. Confirmation bias is the tendency of the human mind to look for, interpret, and recall information in a way that confirms our preconceptions. Translation: basically, this means we are programmed to mistake what's familiar with what's true. For example, when Prophet Ibrahim asked his dad, "Why are you worshiping these stones when they can't help you and can't even help themselves?" His father's answer was, "Because that's what our forefathers did." That is confirmation bias in action. Prophet Abraham's father didn't look at the logical argument his son was presenting. Instead, he basically said that what he was doing was correct because that's what his forefathers did, aka that's what he was familiar with. That's what he had seen growing up. Now, you might be wondering, how is that relevant for you as a Muslim today? Because you've already accepted Islam, but that is a dangerous assumption. The human mind and the human psyche is built on biases in many cases. That's the status quo. So even if you're a Muslim, you cannot assume that you're always getting to the truth. As Muslims, confirmation bias sometimes makes us incorporate un-Islamic practices into our life which are actually opposed to Islam. For example, I'm from Pakistan, and I know Pakistan and India, they have a culture that says that when a couple gets married, the bride-to-be must pay a huge dowry upon the marriage, when actually Islamically, it's the husband that gives the meher money to his wife. But even as Muslims, this thing in our culture, we kind of incorporate it into our tradition and how we deal with marriages. Now, if the bride-to-be wants to make it rain on her future husband, that's also okay. Nobody's judging here. Probably not going to happen though. Stay tuned for more psychological perspectives on the Quran.